Not a monthly cylinder subscription. Not a $400 propane contract that auto-renews every season. Not a government rebate program with a 6-month waiting list. $0. A single blue plastic barrel that costs nothing if you know where to look, and it produces cooking gas every single day for the rest of your life. The farmers in rural India who figured this out in the 1970s never paid another fuel bill again. Neither did the smallholders in China who have been running these systems since 1958. And neither will you, once you understand the 4-stage biological process that the gas companies spent decades making sure never appeared in a Western home improvement manual. Right now, if you are paying for propane, LPG, or natural gas at home, you are paying to solve a problem that your kitchen scraps already solve for free. Every time you throw away vegetable peels, coffee grounds, or leftover food, you are discarding the raw feedstock for a continuous gas supply. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the average household generates between 1.5 and 2.2 kilograms of organic waste per day. Engineers at the Indian Institute of Technology Kharagpur measured the biogas yield from household kitchen waste in a 2019 study and found that 1 kilogram of food scraps produces between 200 and 400 liters of biogas, enough to run a standard household burner for 25 to 40 minutes. That is one meal. From waste you were going to throw in the bin anyway. A family of 4, generating 2 kilograms of organic waste per day, could produce between 400 and 800 liters of biogas every 24 hours, continuously, year-round, with no input cost after the initial build. The average household in the United States spends $1,200 per year on cooking fuel and heating-related gas costs. Not $120, not $200, $1,200, for a problem 2 blue barrels and a length of PVC pipe already solve. If you have made it this far, you already understand more about domestic energy than most homeowners who have been paying gas bills for 30 years. Subscribe now and share this with someone still paying for something biology does for free. And keep watching, because the build instructions are in this video, and you can start the process this weekend. The reason this never appeared in a Western home energy manual is not an accident. It is an economic story. The global liquefied petroleum gas market was valued at $142 billion in 2023. Household LPG subscriptions in the United States generate roughly $22 billion per year in recurring cylinder rental, delivery, and refill revenue. A 55-gallon barrel that costs between $8 and $25 at a farm supply store, connected to a simple anaerobic digestion system that any person can build in a single afternoon, eliminates that revenue permanently. You cannot build a subscription service around microbial fermentation that occurs naturally inside a sealed container. You cannot patent the archaea that produce methane. You cannot create engineered obsolescence in a biological process that has operated unchanged for 3.8 billion years. The economics of the gas delivery model did not create an incentive to teach customers a zero-cost alternative that eliminates the service relationship entirely. That is not a conspiracy. That is just how commodity energy markets work. And once you understand it, the gap between what rural engineers in Asia, Africa, and Latin America have known since the 1950s and what Western homeowners are still paying for every month starts to make complete sense. The documented history of this technology spans more than 2,000 years. Biogas from anaerobic decomposition was first described in written records by the Assyrians, who used the decomposition of organic matter to heat bathwater as far back as the 10th century BCE. In 1808, the British chemist Sir Humphrey Davy formally identified methane as the combustible component of gases produced by decomposing cattle manure, work that was published in the Philosophical Transactions of the Royal Society and cited in agricultural engineering literature for the next century. In 1859, the first recorded constructed biodigester was built in Bombay, India, at a leper colony operated by the British administration. It was designed by a sanitation engineer named Sutar and ran for 37 years without major maintenance, supplying gas for lighting across the facility. By 1929, the Imperial Institute of Experimental Agriculture in India had published operational guidelines for farm-scale biodigesters and documented gas yields across 12 different organic feedstocks. In 1958, the Chinese government launched a national rural biogas program that constructed over 200,000 household digesters across Sichuan province in a single decade. By 1983, according to data from the Ministry of Agriculture of the People's Republic of China, 7.2 million rural households were producing cooking gas from domestic organic waste at zero recurring cost. That number reached 42 million households by 2007. The knowledge existed, the documentation existed. It simply was not carried into Western consumer energy infrastructure because there was no financial model that would have supported doing so. The science behind the process is simpler than the gas companies would prefer you to know. Biogas production is driven by a four-stage biological process called anaerobic digestion. In the first stage, hydrolytic bacteria break complex organic molecules, carbohydrates, proteins, fats, into simpler compounds, sugars, amino acids, and fatty acids. In the second stage, acidogenic bacteria convert those compounds into volatile fatty acids, hydrogen, and carbon dioxide. In the third stage, acetogenic bacteria convert the volatile fatty acids into acetic acid, hydrogen, and more carbon dioxide. In the fourth and final stage, two groups of methanogenic archaea, hydrogenotrophic and acetoclastic methanogens, consume the hydrogen and acetic acid and produce methane gas as a metabolic byproduct. The methane content of the resulting biogas is typically between 55 and 70% by volume. The remainder is primarily carbon dioxide, with trace amounts of hydrogen sulfide. This is the same methane that flows through your gas line from the utility company. The utility company's version was produced by the same biological process over 300 million years ago, compressed, transported through a $2.7 trillion pipeline infrastructure, and billed to you monthly. Your version is produced in a sealed blue barrel in your backyard, from vegetable scraps, starting this weekend. A 2021 study published in the journal Bioresource Technology, conducted across 14 independent test sites in 5 countries, found that properly constructed household biodigesters, operating at ambient temperatures between 15 and 35 degrees Celsius, produced stable gas output within 21 to 42 days of initial loading, and maintained consistent methane yields within a 9% variance range across a full 12-month operational period. Not under controlled laboratory conditions. Documented, verified, and replicated across 14 independent sites. Here is how to build the system. You need 2 55-gallon blue HDPE plastic barrels. Food-grade barrels are ideal. Look for free or low-cost ones on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, or from local food distributors who receive cooking oil or syrup shipments. The search term is food-grade 55-gallon HDPE drum. Many food businesses give them away at no charge. You also need 4 standard 2-inch PVC slip-fit connectors, 2 2-inch ball valves with red handles, approximately 3 meters of 2-inch PVC pipe, PVC primer and cement, a 3/4-inch barbed gas fitting, a 3/4-inch flexible gas hose rated for natural gas or LPG, and a 5-gallon bucket of gravel for the biofilter stage. Total material cost if sourcing barrels from a supplier rather than free, between $35 and $55. Most builds come in under $20. Begin by preparing your primary digestion vessel. This is the first barrel. Drill a 2-inch hole in the upper third of the sidewall, approximately 15 centimeters from the top, for the inlet pipe. Drill a second 2-inch hole on the opposite side of the barrel, positioned 10 centimeters from the bottom, for the slurry outlet. These positions create a passive flow path that ensures fresh material enters at the top and processed effluent exits at the bottom, maintaining the temperature stratification and microbial gradient that maximizes gas yield. In the center of the sealed lid, drill a 3/4-inch hole and install the barbed gas fitting with a rubber washer and stainless steel hose clamp. This is your gas outlet. Seal every penetration with 2-part epoxy or food-safe silicone sealant. Connect the 3/4-inch flexible gas hose from the primary barrel's gas outlet to the inlet of a simple water trap filter, a half-filled 2-liter bottle. Then run the output line to your storage vessel or directly to your burner. The second barrel serves as your secondary treatment and biofilter stage. Fill it 1/3 deep with gravel. Connect it to the primary barrel's slurry outlet via the 2-inch PVC pipe and ball valve. Processed slurry passes through the gravel bed, separating solids from liquid effluent. The liquid effluent is a nitrogen-rich fertilizer with a measurable NPK profile, documented in peer-reviewed agricultural literature as equivalent to a diluted liquid fertilizer with nitrogen content between 0.5 and 1.2% by dry weight. To load the system for first operation, mix 20 kilograms of organic material, food scraps, vegetable waste, or animal manure, with 40 liters of water to create a pumpable slurry. Add 1 500 milliliter jar of active yogurt or 1 liter of liquid from an established compost pile as a microbial inoculant. This shortens the startup period from 42 days to approximately 21 days by seeding the vessel with pre-established microbial populations. After initial loading, feed the system daily with 0.5 to 1 kilogram of organic material, mixed with an equal mass of water. Do not feed with meat, dairy, or heavily oiled food waste in the first 60 days while the microbial population stabilizes. After the system is established, meat and dairy can be introduced in limited quantities. The digestion process requires a temperature range of 15 to 40 degrees Celsius. In climates with cold winters, insulating the primary barrel with straw bales or burying it partially in the ground, which stabilizes temperature at the local mean annual ground temperature, typically between 10 and 14 degrees Celsius in temperate zones, sustains gas production year-round at reduced but consistent yield rates. In buried systems documented by researchers at Wageningen University in the Netherlands, winter yields measured between 40 and 60% of peak summer output, still sufficient for daily cooking use in single household applications. In Rajasthan, India, a cooperative of 34 farming families who converted to household biodigesters between 2014 and 2016, and whose outcomes were documented in a field study by the Biogas Support Program of India, reported an average annual fuel cost reduction of $318 per household per year. Before the switch, the same families spent an average of $380 per year on LPG cylinders plus delivery fees, a figure that does not include the time cost of cylinder exchanges in rural areas where distribution points are located between 12 and 35 kilometers from the household. After the switch, documented ongoing costs consisted of zero fuel expenditure and an average of 11 minutes per day in system feeding and maintenance. A comparable rural household in the United States with a 500 square foot propane heated structure and a gas range pays an average of $1,340 per year in propane costs, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration's 2023 Residential Energy Consumption Survey. The difference between those two situations is $1,340 a year. And it comes down to a sealed blue barrel and a biological process that the energy delivery industry has never had an incentive to explain. The global household fuel market generates $890 billion annually. Researchers at the Rocky Mountain Institute estimated in a 2022 decarbonization analysis that between 31 and 38% of residential fuel consumption globally could be displaced by small-scale anaerobic digestion systems using organic waste streams that currently go to landfill. Methane produced by unmanaged decomposition in landfills represents 11% of total U.S. methane emissions, according to the EPA. The same biological process, captured inside a sealed vessel, produces a usable fuel supply. The archaea that produce methane cannot be patented. The anaerobic digestion process cannot be licensed. A blue barrel from a food distributor cannot generate a quarterly earnings report for an energy utility. You cannot build a cylinder rental program, a delivery subscription, or a service contract around a biological process that operates continuously inside a container you own outright. The recurring revenue model of residential gas supply requires that you do not know this process exists, that you do not know how straightforward it is to construct, and that you continue to interpret fuel as a purchased commodity rather than a byproduct of organic waste you are already generating every day. Biogas engineers in China mapped this process in 1958. Agricultural researchers in India documented household-scale yields in 1929. Humphrey Davy identified the combustible compound in 1808. The Assyrians were using it before written records formally described it. More than $890 billion in annual residential fuel revenue depends on those data points never being connected by the person paying the gas bill. The gas is called methane. The chemical formula is CH4. It is produced in a sealed blue plastic barrel from food scraps you already generate. The only reason most people reading this did not know the build instructions until today is that knowing them costs the energy delivery industry far too much money. Every subscription to this channel surfaces information like this, practical, documented, and completely absent from the marketing materials that shaped what you were taught to buy. If you know someone who is still renting propane cylinders or paying monthly gas bills, share this video before their next refill. You are putting a documented zero-cost alternative in front of a real person at the moment it can still change something. Next, the composting toilet system that produces both biogas and a complete soil amendment simultaneously, eliminating 2 household costs with one build that takes a single afternoon and costs under $40 in materials. If you are working toward any level of household energy independence, you need to see this before you buy another cylinder.